Welcome inside episode 668 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains, and we have some great coverage on today's show. It's Post Media's Bruce Garrioch.
And we have some massive waiver wire news in Sens land, so you know we're going to dive into that.
And more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Thursday, November 10th. The show is free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to like every video by clicking the thumbs up, subscribing to the Locked On Senators channel. The road to 5,000 continues, and be a friend, tell a friend to do the same. Pilsy, before we get into all the happenings with Nikita Zaitsev, with Magnus Hellberg, when Bruce Garrioch is finally on the show. Happy anniversary, brother. This is 3 years to the day for episode 1 of Locked On Senators.
Yeah, it's been 3 great years, and Ross, if you would have told me 3 years ago that we were going to have Bruce Garrioch on our show, I would not have believed you, because we had been blocked by Bruce Garrioch for a long time. But this is what we're doing. We're trying to make the world a better place. We made amends. Bruce says he wants to kind of be a part of this community, and we want to embrace everyone. So we're making amends, unblocking, and he's on our show, and we're having laughs, and we're friends now. So this is just, what a time to be alive.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely grabbing a pint with him when he comes to Winnipeg. This guy's an
Big
absolute beauty. Like, I misunderstood. I like what gentleman, I think it was Jake on Twitter, said. He goes, he's just an agent of chaos. And I understand. He explains it. We'll wait and let him explain why he chooses the block function as his means of, getting things off his feed. We all have a couple people on our feed who you don't like. We use the mute sometimes. I think it's to each their own. But he'll explain that. And we also extend an olive branch to you, the listener. If you would like to be unblocked, we'll let you know how we can make that happen for you.
It's already happening, Ross.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Bruce Garrioch's block number is going down. So as long as, look, here's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people are like, wow, Bruce has a lot of people blocked. For me, what I've taken away from this is there are a lot of mean people out there that probably most of those people deserve to be blocked. So if you're blocked, let Bruce know, hey, I'm sorry about whatever happened. I'm a changed man. We're going to work things out here. Let's be friends. And he'll probably shoot you an email back and say, sure, here's a second chance, unblocked. So let's just try to make Sens Twitter a better place, because the Senators are on a 6-game losing streak. And the last thing we need is Sens Twitter to not be a place where we can all have a safe haven and deal with this team together.
Yes, and Bruce has been covering the team since day one, of course, so we get into his career as well. But we'd be remiss not to mention the waiver news from yesterday, and it almost feels too good to be true in a way. I'm still a little nervous. We're going to get the Zach Smith treatment for Nikita Zaitsev, where he clears waivers, and he's right back in the lineup. But we'll find out today at 2 p.m. You can follow along at Sens Central. We'll tweet that out for you there. We're recording right now at just after 11 o'clock. So DJ Smith has just spoken to the media. Must be a tough day for DJ Smith.
Yeah, but I mean, this day has been coming, and it's a couple weeks too late, to be honest. Look, we have nothing personally. There's no vendetta against Nikita Zaitsev. Honestly, it's more just the fact that he's put in positions that aren't ideal for him, and it just hasn't worked. Like, that's just plain matter of the fact. So, you know what? DJ said it. If he gets claimed off waivers, he wishes nothing but the best for him. If he doesn't, then they're going to work on his game in Belleville, and hopefully he gets some confidence. That's fine. But this team needed to do something. It's a 6-game losing streak. The stats are obvious. Sure, he's a third pair defenseman that maybe you can make the argument doesn't have an impact on all the crucial goals, but something needed to be done, and this was the most obvious thing that needed to be done. So I think a lot of Sens fans had a sigh of relief when this happened. Ross, we were recording with Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils, and mid interview, you're just pumping your fists and going crazy. So this definitely was something that Sens fans wanted to see, and I think it shows that, hey, DJ Smith is willing to he's willing to bend here, and that's what they're doing.
Yes, and I'm not going to go out and say that this is a direct, like, hey, DJ, we're taking away your toys. It definitely could be, but I don't know if I'm ready to make that conclusion just yet. But I will say that our crack research team on Twitter has figured out a trend with Pierre Dorion, at least what could develop into a trend. On January 1st, 2019, Tom Pyatt was put on waivers. We all know Tom Pyatt was a favorite of Guy Boucher's and a guy who stuck around a little too long. He already moved on from Nate Thompson, and there were a few other Guy Boucher guys who were let go. However, it was 2 months to the day later that Guy Boucher was fired, as first reported by @SensCentral on Twitter. That to say, this could be the beginning of the end, or it could be a learning point where we finally see what this team looks like. Because now, assuming Nick Holden's in tonight, Zaitsev's out, they're 4-1 without Nikita Zaitsev. If that stat continues, then I mean you've taken out the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Ross, I'm not buying into the connection there. Sorry to rain on the stat crack there, but I don't think there's any correlation. It really seems like.
So you're an expert.
Yeah, I am an expert. Your local expert from the Locked On Senators podcast, your team.
Rest as a weapon.
But I'm not buying into that. It doesn't seem like that is the case. I think this is just something that had to be done.
Yeah, it really did. Did you think Magnus Hellberg had to be done?
It's tough. I honestly, truly thought Magnus Hellberg could be a good addition to this team. And in the one game he played, he got the W. Sens only have 4 Ws all year. So if you're looking to have people look at stats and patterns, that seems pretty good to me. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care who you are. Don't kid yourself. An NHL team cannot function properly with 3 goalies, and this was the obvious move. Now, I don't think he's making it through waivers, Ross. I think there's lots of teams that for the low price of free 99 on the waiver wire pickup, they're going to be jumping at the opportunity to take Magnus Hellberg in. And you know what? I hope he gets a good opportunity, because just like Forsberg, look at the path here. You get put on waivers multiple times. You bounce around. You change your equipment. You find that right home where it just works. And who knows? Maybe you're looking at a 3-year deal coming up for Hellberg. So I wish the best for him.
Pilsy, you know we love trivia on this show. There are only 2 goalies in Senators history who have 1 win and no losses. Or should I say just no losses, but have won at least 1 game. Magnus Hellberg and... Can you name the other goalie? It's very tough. I won't be surprised if you can't.
Is it before the year 2000? I feel like that's what it's going to be.
I will tell you the exact year. That's how tough this is. I don't even think it's going to help. And let us know in the comments if you know at this moment. Pause right here. Type it out, because I don't want to give it away. But this one's pretty tough. It's in the year 2005, 2006, which ironically was when you started really following this team because of Dominic Hasek. Well, Dominic Hasek went out, so they had to go out and get an insurance policy behind Ray Emery.
Damn, the way you worded that really led it up to me should have knowing this, but I don't got it. Got it.
What if I told you he was a shootout specialist? He once played for the Edmonton Oilers, and they would bring him in specifically for shootouts.
Yeah.
Do you remember that era of the NHL where it happened every once in a while? I feel maybe not once in a while. Maybe it was just very occasionally, but there was a time where you're not going to, should I just say the name?
Yeah, let's just say it. I don't got it.
Mike Morrison. Do you remember that name?
No? Never heard of him. Yeah. Or at least it's not ringing a bell.
4 games, went 1-0. So that's the undefeated club in Ottawa Senators lore. It's Mike Morrison and Magnus Hellberg. The only goalies to have wins with Ottawa and never lose a single game. All right, talking about winners, let's get to Bruce Garrioch. But first, Pills, you got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Yes, it is our friends over at betonline.net. Guys, I did have a parlay the other night, but the Buffalo Sabres lost to the Arizona Coyotes. I thought that was the slam dunk, so I'm now sitting at 1-3 on the parlay. Gotta get back to the lab, but the place to do it is betonline.net, because they're your spot for all your sports odds, totals, updates, news, analysis. They got player performance props, totals, unders, money line, puck line, whatever you want. They got it. And it's the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. So that's where we play. That's where we recommend you play, because it's not just hockey either. They got basketball, football, baseball, golf, boxing, UFC, whatever you like. They got it. So go to the website today or check it out on your mobile device to learn all about the trends and the action. Guys, it's betonline.net, where the game starts.
You know, we got to shout out our friends at Shawarma Palace, Ottawa's best food. It's Shawarma Palace. Sens game days taste better with Shawarma Palace, and I'm expecting to see a timeline full of Shawarma Palace platters today at Sens Central. Make sure you're tagging Shawarma Palace as well. Shawarma_Palace. And Pilsy, have you seen the rebrand for Shawarma Palace? Not only are they home for Ottawa's best shawarma, the only place for shawarma, as they call it, but now they've got a snazzy new logo as well. Come on, we got to pull this up right here. You can see in the top right corner, if you're watching on YouTube, the old Shawarma Palace logo, but now a little cursive in the mix here. Look good, feel good, taste good over at Shawarma Palace. All 9 locations in Ottawa, from the Carlton Food Court to my favorite on Rideau at Augusta, the OG location. They're also at Bank and Hunt Club. They're at Bank and Gladstone. You're never too far from a Shawarma Palace. But if you're too lazy to get there, then it's easy. Just open your phone. Go to the apps, any of them. They have Shawarma Palace, and you can too. Dine at any of Ottawa's 9 locations of Shawarma Palace. I'm already planning my next trip home so I can go get the Shawarma Palace platter, chicken, extra garlic. Thank you, sir. I'll take probably an extra pita and maybe invite a few friends, because that's what it takes to finish the delicious platters at Shawarma Palace. Send them a note on social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, and let them know when you go in that Locked On Senators sent you. We appreciate you. We appreciate Shawarma Palace. Our friends, you're among family at Shawarma Palace. All right, let's get to today's interview with Post Media's Bruce Garrioch. All right, we now welcome on a very, very special guest. It's been a long time coming, but he is here. It's Bruce Garrioch from Post Media. You can find his work at Ottawa Citizen, Ottawa Sun, also on the TSN broadcast. He's a day one contributor to the Ottawa Senators. Welcome to Locked On Senators. Bruce, how you doing today?
I'm good, you guys. Nice to be with you. Just ran in from the Canadian Tire Center, and I'm raring to go here. I'm looking forward to Hall of Fame weekend, and maybe by the time I get back, the team will be on a winning streak.
Yeah, I want to get your analysis from the vibes. You were just at Canadian Tire Center for practice this morning, but what better way to break things up than honoring the greatest Ottawa Senator of all time in Daniel Alfredson. However, before we get to all that, I'm curious about your own career. I mentioned you've been covering this team since day one, but I looked up. You might have seen me creeping on your LinkedIn. I know you get notifications from time to time when people go, but you worked at Post Media long before the Senators even came to Ottawa. Did you ever think you'd be covering an NHL team day in, day out when you got that job?
Well, it's interesting because in 1986, I went to Algonquin College, and I didn't really, I was in my second year, in 1984, pardon me, I was in my, I went to Algonquin College, started the 2-year journalism program. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was always interested in newspapers, and I always thought I wanted to be a news reporter. I wanted to cover courts because I always found that pretty interesting. And my buddy, in the second year of college, my buddy Rob Knights worked at a Sunday paper in town called the Sunday Herald. And Sunday Herald was owned by a local radio guy and a salesperson at their local radio station, Mark Charlebois. And Rob did the stats on Saturdays, the NHL stats pages on Saturdays. Started at 9 a.m, and he got $75 a day, and you finished at midnight. And he got a job at Citizen, so he was looking for somebody who liked sports. He came to me. He said, "Look, it's $75, but it's a good experience." I said, "Sure thing." So I went down and met with the sports editor at the time, Chris Stevenson, and CJ said, "Yeah, sure. Start next Saturday." So I did that. I started my Saturdays by going to the bus station and picking up parcels from Montreal. We had a guy in Montreal, Glenn Cole, who covered the Habs for us, and another guy, Brody Snyder, and they used to send their columns by bus on Friday night. I go to the terminal bus station on which was just about a block away on Catherine Street, pick it up, and then go back and type in their columns. And that's how I started my day. And then just it kind of evolved from there. We got bought by the Sun in 1988. Went daily. I covered the Rough Riders for 3 years, and helped out with the 67s. And then when the hockey team came, the first actual NHL event I really covered was the 1991 All-Star Game in Chicago, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but that was at the start of Operation Desert Storm. And you talk about the anthem in Chicago. Really my first NHL experience covering game was, the anthem in Chicago, and was very emotional because of all the American flags and Operation Desert Storm at the time. So there's been a lot of great memories on the way. And I always tell my friends, there are days this feels like a job, but most days I tell people I could be working.
Yeah, when you love your work, you don't spend too many days working, and that's the beauty of it. Now, Bruce, had you always been a hockey fan? Like, was part of you kind
love
of
the Toronto Maple Leafs growing up?
Oh, come on!
Also, love the Toronto Maple Leafs growing up. Used to stand in front of my TV with a tape recorder and do play-by-play.
Wow.
Realized I wasn't very good at it. I'm not very good at the English language either in newspapers, but hey, it's all worked out pretty good. Yeah, no, I mean, because we were in Ottawa, we got Toronto, Montreal games, and I liked watching Montreal because of Danny Gallivan. But on a Saturday night, if I had a choice, CBC Ottawa usually showed the Leafs, and CBC Montreal usually showed the Habs, and I would quite often choose the Leafs, only because at that point, they were underdogs, and the Montreal Canadiens they were perennial Stanley Cup champions, and I like Sittler, I liked Lanny McDonald, I big fan of Ian Turnbull's, Mike Palmentier, I like Dan Maloney. I like the characters the Leafs had at that time.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Now, Ross mentioned that you've been covering this team since day one. Can you take us back to that day one? Like, what was that like for you when all the excitement, the news is coming in? I know there's a lot of kind of crazy stories that go along leading up to the moment the Ottawa Senators get an NHL team, but take us through it through your perspective.
Well, I think that nobody ever felt that they would get a team.
Right.
And I remember when they took the non-refundable, $50 deposit for season tickets. I remember there was a huge argument at the newspaper because our sports editor at the time, Jane O'Hara, called it a scam. And so, our first interaction with Bruce Firestone was this, and Randy Sexton and Cyril Leader was this whole argument about Jane calling the season ticket thing a scam and that they were never going to get a team. And
wow.
And you think about the work that those guys did and the amount of hands that they shook and the work that they did going across the National Hockey League. Man, Randy Sexton tells the stories now about the number of hands he shook and spending time with Bill Wirtz in Chicago and Jeremy Jacobs in Boston and things like that just to get an NHL team. And I just remember the day they got it, people didn't expect it. People didn't see it. But when they said Tampa and Ottawa special, and then that opening night at the Civic Center, one of my memories is, they have Brian Orsier skating before the game, and standing along boards with Don Brennan. And I said, can you believe this? And then it was incredible because the press box couldn't even get into the press box that night. Basically, Don and I had standing room along the boards, and then we had a media room that we rode in. But I remember that morning and just, Don Cherry and Ron McLean being in the stands sitting there, and I'm thinking, like, this is the biggest day in franchise history. But I also remember Brad Marsh was scratched. So, you always do stuff before the game. And so we go into the dressing room to talk to Brad Marsh about being scratched. He says, you know what? I played for the Leafs. I played in the Canadian market. If you guys think I'm going to say anything, you're out of your minds. Get away. So there you go.
I love that. And it was post media, not you, another Bruce actually, who wrote the article that was headlined, "Maybe Rome was built in a day," which was iconic and still lives on to this day. Now, I want to get into the kind of development.
We weren't owned by we were owned by the Sun then. Yeah, we didn't get bought by Post Media, I think, till 7 or 8 years ago. So they were always, people with Citizen were always our competition.
So. Okay, no credit for that headline then, eh?
Well, you know what? No, you know what? They sleep a lot better since they took me in, though.
There you go. Well, hey, we're talking about the development of the industry, and you mentioned it there, the two biggest kind of rivals coming together at one point. But for me, it's like newspaper guys, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's all about storytelling and getting all this information out and organizing it so properly. And then you might get a letter in the mail a couple weeks later saying that you put UE in Stutzla instead of the umlaut. But now you're getting all these people directly messaging you. Is that the biggest kind of difference for you, is having to deal with the immediate criticism or feedback right away from everybody on planet Earth that has a Twitter account?
Yeah, and that obviously that's the biggest adjustment. I mean, when I get an email, I try to return them. I'm not always successful at that, but you're right. One thing that Twitter is good for, and I think it's only a small sample size, but I think it gives you a pretty good read of the room, if that makes any sense, is that you get some sense of what people are thinking that you didn't get in the past. Wayne Scanlon and I were talking about this one time, and I said, Wayne, when we started, the deadline was, you used to say, well, what time's deadline? And they'd say, well, when are you going to be done? I said, well, I could probably be done by midnight. Well, midnight it is.
Depends on the bus schedule too, right?
Well, exactly, right? and now it's like, now I always have followed the buzzer, right? Yeah, ever since I started, but followed the buzzer, go down the dressing room, and then, rewrite for online. And now our deadlines have changed, and that, you have to have something to them sometime in the morning. Like when I hang up from you guys, I'm doing a story on the sale that I've got to get to the Citizen by 2:00. And, so it's completely changed. What it's become is it's become 24/7.
Yeah.
And I have my buddy Pan. He calls himself Pan of SCU on Twitter. So he didn't sleep much, right? Like this guy's up all the time. So I said, look, I go to bed at 9:30 on non-game nights. So if anything happens between 9:30 and 7 a.m., Dave, you have permission to call house. So I still have a landline because my cell phone is on silent in those hours. So you call the house so I can get up and do something. Now, he didn't call me when Ryan Reynolds was on, but thankfully Ken Warren was awake at 2 a.m. and he wrote it.
No, that's awesome. And hey, it just shows like the
landscape has changed, Ross. Yeah. Like it's completely changed. It's not, working in radio, and you guys both know from your experience that the landscape is like, it can change by the second, right? Like it's just,
it's almost like a different career than what
you
started, eh?
And honestly, the last 5, I've said this to somebody the other day, that the last 5 to 7 years in Ottawa, they felt chaotic, right? Because, you spent basically 5 years or 7 years with the owner, and he's calling saying, "I don't put this out. It's not for sale. I'm not selling it." And now the team is for sale. And so, kind of where do we go from here?
No, they're very interesting, and I want to touch on this. And Pilsey's wants to get in a little more on the sale, and we want to ask you about Daniel Alfredson as well, and covering a guy who's going in the Hall of Fame, and you're going to be there covering it for TSN as well. But when it comes to Twitter itself, like I know that you're a polarizing figure there because you have all the information. Hell, I made a burner account at one point just so I could see what you were saying up to the minute. But does it just get to a point where you're like, okay, the block function's the easiest one to just
Yeah,
never deal with it again?
Yeah, and I'm not proud of this, but I just checked. I've blocked 1,503 people.
Wow.
So, I could pump my numbers up if I just unblocked the 1,503 people. And I was thinking, I could push myself past 70,000 if I just showed a little bit of restraint. But, if you're going to call me fat and dumb and stupid, those
Sure.
could all be true about me, but I'm not going to accept that.
Hey, Husky. Paul McLean would say Husky, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I think, look, one of the things I've had to learn to do is just to quit responding. I can't. And I don't use the mute function because I don't think that's enough. I think you just block people. I think it's easier. And also, I've quit. I finally took the advice of some good friends, Dave being one of them, to just quit responding. You don't have to respond to every tweet. So I think that you just have to just stop responding to them, and that's what I've done. I'm not entertaining them anymore because it's entertainment for them. It becomes stressful for me, and quite frankly, I think we all know that Twitter is not real life. Like what goes on Twitter, we all know because we're right in the middle of it. But a lot of my friends have no idea what you and I and Bills here talking about right now, Ross.
Yeah, no, it's very fair. And what I will say, and maybe we can extend an olive branch here. If people are still listening, we're now 20 minutes in. If they put their handle in the comments right here and say they won't say anything mean anymore, will you unblock them if we give you?
Yeah, I'll unblock whoever wants to be unblocked.
Making friends.
And frankly, we can push up the numbers a little.
There we go.
We all gain from this.
100. Oh, I like that, and I think people appreciate seeing you in a more long form conversation because I feel like when you're on TSN, like you got your question period, it's quick in and out. You might get Baba Booeyed every decade, but you do well, man. You do.
You know what? You know what's interesting about question period is the amount of work that goes into that. Like, we put in a good 2 hours during the day arguing about what we're going to talk about, and then we try to have it done the night before, but that rarely works out because things change, and especially now. And so we, even though it's only 2.5, 3 minutes, like it's fun. TSN has been very, very good to me, and I really enjoy that role. So I really appreciate it.
How do you think your new teammate's doing? Mark Mathot, your analysis.
To me, like he could do whatever he wanted, right? And his analysis is just so bang on. He's so articulate. He gets his point across. He brings great analysis. He knows the game. When I first saw him on the Wally and Mathot, I thought, oh my God, like this guy's got to get it. They got to get this guy in the broadcast. And it's just, to me, let's put it this way. When you dealt with Mark Mathot as a player, you knew that he could be a really good analyst. There are some players who they can't do it because they can't get their point across the way he does. I mean, what the guy I thought that would be a great analyst, I haven't seen him anywhere, was Craig Rivet. I just thought when I used to see Craig Rivet on TV, I thought, oh my gosh, when this guy retires, he should go into television analysis. Now, I haven't seen him, but to me, he was like, wow, like that guy should be in television analysis. I look at a guy who didn't last long was Ron Tugnutt. When you spoke to Ron Tugnutt as a player, you went, wow, like that guy should be on TV. But when he got in the booth, it just didn't work out for him. So, but Mark is the guy who's been able to make that transition, and quite frankly, has been able to make it rather easily.
Yeah, absolutely. We are big fans of Mark Mathot, both the player and the broadcaster. And I mean, hey, Bruce, not everyone can handle the bright lights. That's the thing. Like, you can have the analysis, but it's a big difference doing it when there's no camera on you and when there is one on you.
The hardest, I think, in talking to Andy Petrillo, I worked behind the scenes with her for a couple of years, is like how they're able, and yourself included, like to maintain focus when I'm in your ear as the producer or counting down, like to be able to not move at all and continue your point. I think that's a fantastic skill. Bruce, how did you get the opportunity with TSN? How did that all come up? It's been what, half decade now?
Yeah. Well, when they got the contract, what happened was when they got the contract, I think it was the year that Alfie left. And yeah, and Steve Dryden, the quizmaster, reached out to me, who's in partial retirement now, but I still hear from him every day. He reached out to me and said, look, we'd like you as part of the broadcast. We got to figure out a role. And then it just kind of went from there. I kind of worked with him and Drager on what kind of my role could be on the broadcast. And at the start, they said that we would do 20. And I said, okay, 20, sure, yeah, whatever works. And obviously it's turned into a lot more than that. And but I think we've also been able to enhance it by bringing Cheryl in with Yay or Nay, because she, as you guys know, Cheryl's nothing but fun, and she's got great analysis. And so we have fun with her as well.
Yeah, and everyone on the broadcast does a really great job. I think I want to we got to get to the biggest story right now for the Ottawa Senators, and that's the sale of this team. And I mean, it really is amplified when you have potential buyer in Ryan Reynolds in the crowd last night. Where are we at with Ryan Reynolds here, Bruce? Because it seemed like this was just a fun story and everybody wanted it to happen, but the pieces are moving along quicker than I think people are really understanding here. How serious does this look that Ryan Reynolds could potentially be a part of an Ottawa Senators ownership group now that the team is for sale?
Well, I think it's very realistic. I'm not saying I haven't said anything before, but we saw he was there last night and I'm not sure who it was. I was gonna because I'm trying to watch the game, and I didn't get really to look
going
at
on.
Yeah, who he was sitting with, but I do know that he was sitting with one of his bankers or a couple of his bankers, and I believe his bankers in the Wrexham deal were Inner Circle Sports, a New York-based investment company that brokered the deal for Eugene Melnyk to refinance the team in 2013. They were part of they brokered George Gillette's sale of the Montreal Canadiens to the Molson family in 2009. They've also done some work in the National Hockey League. So I look at that and say, okay, so that's who's going to find him the money. Ryan Reynolds is 100% serious about that. I've had some discussions with his representatives. He likes the city. He wants to be part of it, and he wants to help this team get to the next level. He likes the story of what's going on here. Inner Circle Sports can help him be involved. And if I were Ryan Reynolds, I had this discussion with someone yesterday. Right now, I just keep my powder dry, and just I wouldn't align myself with anybody. If Andre Desmarais is interested, and the assumption is that Andre Desmarais is interested with Jeff York and whatever local people Jeff York has brought into his group, fine. Don't align yourself with Andre Desmarais. Don't align yourself with Michael Andlauer. Don't align yourself with the Kimmel family in Toronto, who was trying to get involved in the LeBreton deal with Eugene Melnyk before he passed away. See where it goes.
Yep.
You know, and I know that whoever buys this team has Gary Bettman's blessing. And, there's a lot of people who believe internally in the NHL that Andlauer is already in the club. Michael Andlauer, the owner of the Hamilton Bulldogs, is already in the club. He owns 20% of the Montreal Canadiens. What is that share going to be worth, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be worth a hell of a lot more than he bought it for, right? When he does sell it. So there's a lot of belief that if you want to tab a guy as a front runner, he's a front runner. I don't know that to be true, because from what I was told yesterday is that the interest in this team is through the roof.
Yep.
And not only because it's an NHL team deal, it's through the roof because it's also a real estate deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's where I want to go next, Bruce. Like, where do you think the next announcement or news clipping, what are you going to write about next as a confirmed thing? The next steps of LeBreton, or a finalization, or all but a finalization of a sale?
I think the finalization of the sale has to come first, but I do believe that, because I think so the lease has to be done on LeBreton by September of 2023. You've got to think, guys, that even though it may take 6 months to complete the sale, I would suggest that we know by mid-January who's going to buy this team, right? And because once they get into the nuts and bolts of the sale, that's going to take a while to complete the paperwork. But as we sit here, I think we see an agreement in principle by January. I think we probably hear about a front runner sometime the next month. The issue right now for the banker is, Gladio. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't know
a
how
couple
to say
extra
it.
letters in there.
Yeah. Well, the company in New York selling the team, however you say it, they don't have all the paperwork they need from the Senators right now. They don't have all the financial information they need. Once they get that financial information, they can take the next step and start working with people who want to bid for the team.
Does the ongoing lawsuit with Ruddy and all that, do you think that plays a role in all this as well?
Well, it's got to play some kind of role, right? Because it's sitting there. But I don't know, is his lawsuit against the hockey team, or is it against Eugene Melnyk personally? I mean, I guess, a far better lawyer would be able to answer that than me. But I think, yeah, I mean, obviously it's got to be dealt with. I know that there's been some talk that, there's been some, rumors going around that he thinks he's going to get the team as part of the lawsuit. I don't see that as a possibility.
Yeah. Wow.
That would it makes no sense.
Yeah, we're no lawyers either, Bruce, but I'm gonna hope that is not what happens.
Well, I don't see it.
Let's move on to the team now, and we got massive news.
Yeah, the fun part. Yeah.
Yeah, but I won't get into that. Not that, Bruce. Let's go back to the nostalgia here. We got massive news that the Ottawa Senators will be retiring Chris Neil's number 25.
Bruce is a part of the committee.
Yeah.
Right on.
Okay.
My vote put him over the top.
There you go.
There you go. I'm sure Chris Neil appreciates that. But what was the lead up?
Right now, Dean Brown is sitting somewhere saying the same thing. My vote put him over the top.
Hey,
Anyway,
he needed all the votes he could get. And what led up to this moment? Was it the fact that the Senators are really doing a great job and working hard to bring back alumni to this team? So they thought, hey, Chris Neil's getting back into the fold. Chris Phillips is into the fold. Chris Phillips' numbers is retired. Chris Neil, very similar kind of stats as Chris Phillips in the fact that they're both Senators for life. Like, what all led up to this point and the decision that it's time to retire Chris Neil's number? And if you're watching on YouTube, Ross pulled up the picture of Bruce Garrioch and Chris Neil together last night, both looking great.
Well, 30th anniversary season, and when we sat down as an honoring committee, that was kind of what led to this was its 30th anniversary season. We hadn't, because of COVID, we hadn't met as an honoring committee for I think 3 years. And so it was kind of like people back in the rink, this is the right time to honor people. And we had talked about Chris Neil in the past, and whether it was Ring of Honor or retire his jersey. I thought Dean Brown did a terrific job presenting on Chris's behalf. And Chris Neil isn't having his number retired because he had 250 points in his 1,026 NHL games. He's having his number retired for a hell of a lot more than that. And I said this to I think Patricia Bowl on Twitter. I said, because she said, "Hey, this is why it's being retired," and she was right. It's being retired. You have to be from Ottawa to appreciate everything Chris Neil has done for the organization, and I think you're going to see, some Ring of Honor announcements here rolled out in the next few weeks, and you're going to see more people honored, because I think it's all part of the 30th anniversary celebration. And to me, Chris Neil was just a natural choice. I had no issue with it. I had no qualms with it. I think he was an important player for this organization, and what he did, what he meant to the city. He didn't just play a role on the ice; he played a role off the ice. Him and his wife, Caitlin, very, involved at Rogers House. I mean, he means a lot here.
15 years with the Ottawa Senators, half of the franchise's entire existence. You certainly understand why he's being honored.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Bruce, I got to get your take on this. We asked this often. I feel like more so when there was no hockey. We were doing 6 shows a week during the pandemic, but it's a great question. Which of Chris Neil's teams, if you put them in a round robin tournament, who comes out on top? Like that 03 team that was a goal away from the Stanley Cup final, the 2017 team to kind of bookmark it? Or was it one of those 2 years in the middle where Chris Neil himself had career years, but when the Senators were kind of at the top of the league, 05, 06, and then the next season?
Well, I think 03 was the best team that never achieved what we thought they'd achieve. You had Cherry, you had Hossa, you had Havlat, Redden, Phillips, Alfredson. I look at that team and I just think that was a team where if they could have found a way past New Jersey in that Game 7, Chris Phillips scores the dramatic overtime winner to get them to 7 in Game 6 in New Jersey. If they could have found their way past that would have been just, I think, a magical run.
For you, Bruce, what is the main difference between the Ottawa Senators retiring jerseys and the Ring of Honor? Like, where is that separation? And when you guys were talking about how do we honor Chris Neil, where is it that kind of separated him and being like, no, this is worthy of retiring the jersey rather than the Ring of Honor?
I think it was obviously not based on numbers. I think it was based on what he brought every night. I think based on the fact that he ranks 20th over all time in penalty minutes. Now, normally, penalty minutes aren't always looked at as important, but Chris Neil had a tough job every night, and he did his job.
Yeah.
And that to me was the key. And he had some great moments for this team, and like scoring a winning goal in the Stanley Cup final in 2007. I think be the only game that won, Game 5, or Game 3. Pardon me.
First at home.
Yeah, so I think that kind of separated him from the rest. If we went on points, no, he shouldn't have his number retired. But it's not just about points. It's about It's like, if you went on points, would you have retired Chris Phillips somewhere? Sometimes you have to look at what a player means to the organization, and that's why you kind of have to be here. I mean, Alfredson was a natural and easy choice, right? But was there debate over Phillips and Neil? Sure, there was debate, but in the end, it's the right thing. It's absolutely the right thing.
Yeah, so 3 players in franchise history have all played 1,000 games with the franchise, and all 3 will have their numbers hanging up in the rafters with the great Frank Finnegan. You teased that we're going to be seeing a lot more of these types of honors going out throughout the season. Can you give us any insight into what the plans are for any of those? Is it going to be like ceremonial face-offs with as many guys as you can get from one team, or how do they plan? Oh, we're getting the button it up.
Secrecy. I can't say anything. No, I'll just say there'll be a few more. So it'll be
Awesome.
It'll be nice, and I think it's something that will be rolled out in the next. I didn't quite look at the timing, but I think in the next month you'll
Fair
see
enough.
some more people who have meant things to this organization honored, and I think in a nice way too. So.
Fair enough. No, that's well said. One thing that's not sworn to secrecy, and we want to leave you with this, Bruce, because I know you're going to be in Toronto this weekend covering Daniel Alfredsson's Hall of Fame induction. Is there an overarching memory that you have from covering his entire career in Ottawa?
It's interesting. I mean, I always think of it as probably not moment where he was, in that series.
Teed up.
In that series.
Are we going to find out what else the Sens are going to honor, Bruce? Are you going to tell us?
Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. That winning goal to go to the Stanley Cup final in 2007. One of the things that, and it's not a Senators moment, but in 2006, I was in Turin, and when he won gold with Sweden at the Olympics, and went across. Wayne Scanlon used to go to this little kind of place across the road from the rink. So after the gold medal game was over, we'd written and we went over there to have a beer and something to eat. And Henrik and Hasse Alfredsson, his brother and father, walked in, and Daniel was with them. And I mean, everybody was just excited. I mean, they were all just the excitement of that moment, the excitement of winning a gold medal, and just what it meant to them, and to wear the flag and to win a gold medal for Sweden. I thought that was a pretty special moment in Daniel Alfredsson's career. One of the things I did for TSN this weekend that Laura Dyken is going to voice for me in the Saturday broadcast is the top 11 moments of Daniel Alfredsson's career.
Nice.
And I thought what was neat was that when I went through those 11 moments, we had some obvious, some arguments about what should be in, what shouldn't be in. One of the things that struck me was his flair for the dramatic. I mean, his 400th career goal was an overtime winner against Calgary Flames on December 30th. I can't remember what year. He just his ability. And I was fortunate enough I've been fortunate enough over the year to play some golf with Daniel Alfredsson, a tremendous competitor, and as competitive on the golf course as he was between the boards. And that's that. And the best thing you can say about Daniel Alfredsson is that he is he's a really nice person, and he's very engaging. He gives his time to people, and he's always good that way.
The one that better be in that top 11 is against New Jersey. There's actually a YouTube video where they've cut the game, like play-by-play audio out of it, and it's just isolated with the fan noise. Round 2 in 2007, he comes on the ice. Everyone starts chanting Alfie. He goes right to the net, battle behind it. Puck comes out. He scores. The crowd goes absolutely
Don't do this to me, Ross.
Unreal.
You're going to have to make a new edit here, Bruce.
I had to settle it this morning.
Oh, no.
The one we had an argument about, just real quick, though, because I didn't know whether it should be in or not. I don't mind I'd like to know what you guys think. So I had forgotten that he scored the first shootout goal in history.
Against the Leafs, nonetheless.
Yeah. So that we put in after I had inadvertently left it out. And thankfully someone reminded me, because that stick and puck are already in the Hall of Fame. So, right? So
that needed to be in there. I'm really looking forward to seeing this list, and especially now, I'm going to critique it with a fine-tooth comb. Maybe I'll tweet something at you.
Your moment's not in there.
Oh, no.
Pilsy, you have fun?
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I think all you need to know to understand how the fans feel about Alfie is ask all 19,811 fans at the home opener what they were feeling when Daniel Alfredson came out to drop that puck. I mean, there's not many dry eyes in the arena for that, and that just goes to show you what kind of impact he had on this community. Now, Bruce, thanks so much for your time. This has been great getting to chat with you. I just got one last question, just more of a fun one, not so serious. You spent a lot of time traveling on the road in the NHL throughout your career. What's your favorite road city to make a trip to? What, for whatever reason?
Okay,
Great.
so this is going to really suck, but Montreal. To me, it's just the best atmosphere going. Like, it's just, when you get to Montreal, it's all about hockey. You know, we like to go to Ziggy's Bar for a beer, you know, or Hurley's Irish Pub on Crescent Street. Like to go to Weinstein and Gavino's for dinner. And after the game, most of the Montreal writers gather at Hurley's Irish Pub, and you go in there and you tell a few stories, and then head up to Ziggy's for last call. And one thing I say about Montreal is, when you're walking back to the hotel at 4 a.m, you always think, you know, I don't know what happened here. Where'd the clock go?
I love it.
You know, but also look, Chicago. There's great things about every city. There are absolutely, you know, Rod, like Winnipeg's a great place to go. It's to me, the Canadian cities are the best because it's like being at home.
Except
like,
Toronto.
You know, you can go out and it's no, but you're right. Like, you can go out and find, if you want to watch a game, you can go out and find one easy.
For sure.
That's not always possible in the American cities, right? Where now it's gotten a lot better since ESPN got the rights, but Montreal to me, if you can't get excited about a game on a Saturday night in Montreal, you can't get excited.
Well, how about a Monday night in Winnipeg? Bruce, I'll make sure to come say hi if you're on that trip to
Yeah, I will be there for sure.
Awesome. Looking forward to that and really appreciate your time. This has been really good, and expect a long list sent your way to unblock some of those 1,500
For
accounts.
sure. I'll watch. Thanks, guys.
Ben. Hey, next time we talk is going to be after that top 11 Daniel Alfredson's moments. Get ready for it.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
Stick taps to Bruce for joining us. Really appreciate that. A conversation at the home opener turns into Bruce Garrioch on Locked On Senators. We appreciate that. And yeah, I'll try to make Twitter a friendlier place, because that's bullshit with the little, like, nobody wants to get bullied. Nobody goes on the internet for that. We all go on Twitter to, you know, earn blue check marks like Brandon Pillar and like Bruce Garrioch. But we can't all do that, eh, Pills?
I mean, I think you can all do that now. I think you can pay for the blue check mark. So I just let it be known I didn't spend any money on mine. That's that.
Just get it. And I don't want it. Take it back. Get it out of here. No. All right. So we'll wrap up today's show by letting you know that our full game day preview is available with Trey Matthews on YouTube and on your favorite audio podcasting platforms. Went 40 minutes. It's basically like a twofer for the people. You know what? We'll call it our anniversary gift to the good people, the good listeners out there.
Yep, absolutely. And Trey Matthews, if you guys have not checked out the Locked On Devils podcast, go check it out. Big props to all the people at the Locked On Podcast Network, especially the solo hosts. Like, man, that is damn impressive. And Trey does a great job over there. So give him some love. And Trey said he might join us on the postcast tonight. So if you guys like that, we'll get a little bit of post-game reaction from Enemy Lines with Trey Matthews, Locked On Devils.
It's going to be you and Martian tonight. I've got work 6th shift in a row. Jesus. But I'm going to Nodak on Saturday, so it'll all be worth it there. And so you guys got the postcast tonight. And then tomorrow, a gentleman from the broadcast tonight. No, not Bruce Garrioch. You just heard him. But Mark Mathot will join us. It's the 3rd time in 3 weeks. We told you it'd be weekly, and he's lived up to his word. And we appreciate having his analysis, especially fitting the way the Sens decor has been playing so far this season. I want to get his thoughts on that and a whole lot more. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitin, and this has been the 668th episode on the 3-year anniversary of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.